Hello and welcome to another review of a plugin, Readwise Official. This is a little bit different because it's a voiceover about the original German YouTube video. Let's take a look at Readwise Official, Readwise first. So Readwise is a web app where you can get a lot of things out of highlights from different sources all over the place, from books, from web pages, and other things, and it's aggregated, and then you have a spaced repetition system via mail, which allows you, and in the app, which allows you to take a look at those highlights again and again and again. For me, the biggest point is to be able to export those highlights from one place into Obsidian. And they also have a reader now, which is allowing it to directly read stuff you send to it or you subscribe to and mark the highlights. They have also a plugin that I normally use, Raindrop.io. Like I said, a lot of different sources are available. Here are mine: Kindle, Pocket, Medium, Hypothesis, Air, Raindrop.io, Readwise Reader, and there are more. So for example, the Discord bot in Obsidian Forum will import, and also Reclipper, which is allowing you to do things with YouTube, will also import to or export, in this case, to Readwise. And there are a lot of other possible sources to get these highlights in. And then there are also a lot of options to export those, right? And this is how it looks like. This is building a second brain. That's one of the highlights I have. And I highlighted that in my Kindle, and the graphic isn't going over, which is typical for that thing. So you only get the text, but this is how it looks like. And you can directly jump to the Kindle highlight directly from the web page, or afterwards from Obsidian. In the web page, you can also do tagging and liking and showing those more often if you do the space repetition system. Yeah, and let's take a look what else happens. So here we have the export highlights, and a lot of options. Like I said, I'm using, of course, Obsidian, and for that I use the official Readwise plugin, which is directly from Readwise. And so you see a different kind of approach on how to do this. So let's go over to the Readwise official plugin. So you can download it just normally into Obsidian, right? And in there, you then configure it a little bit. And that's the major difference between other plugins, really. The configuration is really limited. So when you install it and enable it, you need to connect it. And then after you're connected it, you see in my private vault, you can initiate the sync manually. There's also a command for that. You have customized formatting option, which we'll take a look at later. You do the base folder. That's where all of the nodes are coming in. And this is the inbox for me for those source material highlights, right? And then you can configure a resync frequency. I do 24 hours because I don't have too many. And I don't automatically sync when Obsidian opens. I normally trigger the sync if I know I need something. And then I also do resync deleted files, and we come back to later to that, because that's a way to recreate the files if you make changes, for example. And I'm playing around still a little bit with it, so that's quite nice. And that's really it in the plugin. And because it's an official plugin, the rest of the configuration is done on the Readwise web page, and you click on customize formatting options and it will take you to that web page. We take a look at it later. This is one of the highlights for building a second brain. It's an SM, source material node for me. And you see here, that's the highlight we did see in the web interface. And we will take a look at how this node was formatted and configured just in a second, really. And if you have, I'm not talking, it's because I'm not knowing what I did in the German version of the video. So sorry about that. But I didn't have time to record another video just with the same content. So let's take a look at the highlights really. When you're doing exporting and into the plugin configuration. So this is the web page, but you can also get there, like I said, directly from the plugin. And in there you start with the configuration. The first thing is group files and category folders. Those are the 4 categories from Readwise. So they have books, articles, tweets, and podcasts. I divide them up because it's how I work. And there's one problem with that, or caveat. So tweets, for example, the Discord bot in the Obsidian forums, his things will be put in under tweets. And if you have Reclipper and use Reclipper to take notes on YouTube videos, those will be imported underneath podcasts. So because of those only those 4 categories, and you cannot change them, you are really limited. You can go in here and change the folder names, but then again later on you have a category again in the content. You cannot change that either. So that's something you need to look out for. I don't care really. I just divided to find it easier where I find them. And I know that Discord is in tweets and YouTube is in podcasts. And then we have the file name. And the file name itself is the node name. Like I said, I have SM for source material to differentiate between the source material and my starting point of a node. We see that later on, and afterwards for perhaps the other content I have. And what you can do is you do a replace, and there was a node to replace the ... which is added to the file name if it's too long, and replace it with nothing. That's one way. The other way would be to remove a lot more of special characters. And there's a link in the description of this video with a pointer to those. The one important thing is that the file name is being used by Readwise to map the node to Readwise. So you cannot change that. If you change that and there's a new highlight coming in, or if you have selected resync deleted files, it will recreate the node, right? So if there's a typo in the title, you cannot just go and change the typo in the title because the typo in the title is still in Readwise. If you move the node to a different place, Readwise will think it's not there. If you then add a new highlight to that material, it will recreate the node for you. So keep that in mind, and all changes you do after using those file names, and you probably trigger a resync of your material. Again, something you should keep in mind of. I wonder if I should put music behind it, really. Let me know. Then we have the real custom formatting of the content. So you need to enable it, keep that in mind. And then I have the page title, which is just the page title. I didn't put that in the square brackets in this case, which I normally do. And on the right-hand side, you have a preview, and it starts, of course, with the YAML, and then it goes over and has some nice examples, which allows you to take a look what it is. And I don't know really what I'm talking over it. And then we have the page metadata. And okay, I dropped that in the thing. So page metadata is the information you find for the in the node. So it has the author in there if possible. It has a full title, which is there, the icon for the book, and a lot of other things. And I added some things from my side, like the content. It's a Readwise book in theory. The status, it's fleeting. So I know that I need to work on it. And then the type, it's also, again, something I have in there. And then the resource node is being what I'm using to link to my other nodes. And again, here you see that I have an if statement. So if the author is there, I put it in brackets like I have described the author so I can link it. Author might not be there, so it's an if. The full title is always there because that's the title from the web page or from the book or whatever. And here you also see the content line, which is the category, right? So it can always be only be books, tweets, podcasts, or articles, right? So those 4 categories, like I said. You cannot change them. You can only change the names on the folder, but you cannot change them as a category by itself. And that's this. And if there are tags, I will do something different. I will add a tag, but I will do a Readwise in front of it. So I have a tag, for example, for Japan. I have Readwise Japan. This distinguishes that tag, which is coming from a highlight or from a highlighted source, from the tags I have in my vault by default, which is Japan. So when I afterwards search for Japan as a tag directly, I only find material I created. And if I search for Readwise Japan, I find material which is coming in from Readwise. I think that's a very important distinction between my material I created myself and material which is coming more or less automatically into my vault. And I find that very important to distinguish that in searches or anything like that. And then other things is there. And also what you probably noticed is that I use data view fields for this, so I can use queries, and then have, like I said, the resource node. And there I will link it to my resource node I have for, in this case, building a second brain. We will take a look at that later on, which is the entry point from my side, from my vault into that book in this case, or into that web page or whatever. And we'll see what I will put in there later on. And it's a good example because I haven't done really anything yet in there. So that's the part of the metadata. It's not the YAML, it's the metadata. So let's take a look at highlights header. The highlights header is being created once if it's a new page, and then it's highlights, and then afterwards it is being created if you have new highlights, and new highlights will be always be added to the end of the document. The same is when you do a change, which is then also a new highlight. It will be edited to the end. And this is why I said resync deleted files, because I'm unsure if all the highlights are there, or I did go into the book and made a change afterwards. I can always go and delete this node and then resync everything, and I have everything in order again. And it's also the reason why I don't start processing any of those nodes before I'm not really done with the book, in my opinion. So I read through the book once, do all the highlights, and at the end of it, I just delete that page, that node, and then let it recreate so that I have all the material at one in the right order. And if there's afterwards a change because I need to read up something again while processing the highlights, it's how it is. But in that case, I have a different, I need to live with it, but otherwise I always have one single node with all of the highlights in order and not jumping between different, okay, I edited 10 days later, I edited this. And you can see that here. I said everything new will be edited afterwards when you do new highlights at the end with a mark, all right? So how does the highlights look like? And I do it a little bit differently than the default. The default is just using a dash. I use the bigger sign, and so that's a quote. I don't like the dashes, the bullet points. It's my personal opinion. You can change that. And you can always change that later on also, so make a change to that. And again, you have an example how it will look like if you have nodes with it, if you have tags with it. And what I just noticed is that I need to change the tag because I just add text. What is important is this block references, which is there. So TFT Hacker had an article about it, which I put in the description also, to add the block reference with a RW and not just use the highlight ID. So create a unique block reference for every block of text. And I'm also doing that. So it's a unique reference. It's always Readwise. And so it's easy to mark it. And when I then link to that block from another node, from my processing nodes, I always do that to that. And there's no difference to, there's no problem to interfere with any other block references. And also it makes it clear that this is a Readwise article, right? Or a Readwise highlight. And if they have text, like I said, they're coming in, and also notes will be put in there. But I normally don't use text or notes in my highlights. So, but like I said, I saw something different. And then we have the YAML part, right? Which is at the top, which is a little bit weird because the comes at the bottom. And here I go wild with templater. You can use templater because when you have enabled templater on new file creation, it will trigger that and will also parse it. You could also use the Jinja 2 template language to do this, because this is really simple. If the nodes are coming in too fast, templater will track which node it is. So keep that in mind. So there's a problem with that. I haven't seen an issue yet with Readwise. So that's processing it in the correct order. And all of this YAML is just for me. Mainly, and then at the end I have this quick add API code, which adds this node directly to a Kanban board. So it's a executed choice. So I executed choice in quick add, and then this will then trigger adding this specific node, the example title, to a Kanban board. And I hopefully then go into my Kanban board and then process the node from there. So the Kanban board is in private and it's a Readwise mock, more or less. And then you see that the status is stage. So I didn't start it, and you don't find building a second brain in there because I did add this feature later on, after I did already have this node imported into the system. So, but you see some other working, right? So that's the idea. So it automatically adds it, and then I can just move it over. I can, of course, also do a query on my status because it's fleeting. So that's the idea behind it, right? And everything is in there. So what you put in there, it's up to you. Right? If you use Jinja for it, or the template engine, is also up to you. You can do a lot of things already by the, like with the dates and everything, by the original plugin. And so you don't need templater. I'm just using it because I'm used to it, and I did copy paste more or less my existing YAML header over into the node. Like I said, there's also documentation. The documentation is quite good. And you also have other things like the formats for the dating and so on. It's also described. So they are linked in there. So the page is quite good in that area. Now I don't know what I'm doing. Probably going over the things again. So I think I did cover everything. So the next part will be the sync notification, which is at the bottom. Yeah. One thing you should keep in mind is that whatever you do, it should fit to your approach, your processes. What I'm doing is it works for me. The vaults configured. I don't do publishing. I don't want to have publishing available. So by default, I do publish false, and so that's my process, right? So if you do something different, do it differently. A sync notification, that's a file where it contains all the syncs and it adds to, like I see, a date stamp and then how many highlights it is. And I mapped that, I like linked that to the daily log node, and I linked that to the node which is being updated or created new. I don't really need that because I also use list modified files plugin, which is doing it automatically. Any change to any file is being tracked. But if you don't have that, you can use that to create a nice graph. See, okay, I updated so many highlights on this date to this page and so on. I find it interesting. It's just a second watch there. So that's it from the configuration side, right? So there's, like I said, a very good documentation available, and it goes through it. It has some examples in there. It links you to the Jinja 2 templating language, which is another language to learn templating after templater and some other derivatives in the plugin. And then you have examples. You have some nice ideas like, okay, you can do categories and you can use icons, for example. And then you have the default, how to create the highlights. And there's a lot more, like if you want to go all in, and you can also ask questions in the forums or in the Discord channel. So this is how my node looks like, right? That's the original highlight from Readwise. This is what I did mark. And like I said, I did mark the graphics, but the graphics are never going through. And another in highlighting here in the Kindle or whatever. Doesn't really matter. It's just always just doing the text. And this is how it looks like in the node, right? So you see the code, you see the location, which is opening up in Kindle then via the Readwise webpage. So it's not directly accessing Kindle. It always goes via the webpage. And then afterwards, we have that block reference, right? Which is then always this unique, and it's adding it with the Readwise in front, so it's fine. You can reference, and that is my source node, right? It has some other titles, it has aliases in, and then the idea is to add key ideas. Why I did have that? Why I did buy it? How can I find that book again? How to get more out of it? That's from, and I have some data view queries about it, and that's from how to read a book mainly. So I've tried to fill that out to have some more information. And then when I then work with the highlights, and I normally go and mark the highlight, export it to a new node, and then I can work there and rephrase that, put my findings around it, explain how that works for me, and stuff like that. I never really touch this node again and edit it because it's getting overwritten, right? So we are getting to the end of the video. Like I said, it's a little bit weird because I'm doing a voiceover, but I didn't have the time to record it again. And in general, I really like that approach because it doesn't matter from where the information is coming. It is always the same format. That it was the major reason I subscribed to Readwise, because it's a paid product if you want to use it that way. I don't use the spaced repetitions. I don't need to bring up the highlights I did, but I want to have all the different sources being in one way, looking the same, having the same structure and everything. And I could, of course, do that with all the different plugins more or less, depending on what they're able to do. There's a Kindle plugin, there's a Tweet plugin, and so on. But I really like that straight because they look the same, right? Doesn't matter from where they are coming from. If it's a web page or if it's a tweet. In this case, it's the Discord bot. Again, it looks the same, right? And that's how I use it, why I like it, and why I did choose to use the Readwise plugin. I don't use the highlighter from Readwise. I use Raindrop, but Raindrop then exports or syncs to Readwise. So I get those from there, and didn't look at the reader yet really. because I'm busy with other things. I will take a look at there also. And yeah, you manage my query. There is a vault available. There is a blog article with all the templates available in the description. So feel free to take a look at there. And I hope you enjoyed it, and bye.